Hey guys, in this video we're going to test the autofocus performance of the Viltrox 23mm f1.4 and the Fujifilm XT4. Before I'm going to start with the tests, I want to mention a couple of things. First of all, at the moment I'm using the Viltrox 23mm f1.4 with the Fujifilm XT4 with face tracking and eye tracking autofocus, so you can get an overall idea how the autofocus performs with this lens and the Fujifilm XT4. Another thing that I want to mention is that I have the newer version of the Viltrox 23mm f1.4. How I know that I have the new one is because I have the silver inscription on the lens and not the golden inscription. If you want to know the difference between these two, I'm going to leave a link down below in the description for the Viltrox's website so you can read all the necessary information. And another thing that I want to mention is that before I bought this lens, I watched a couple of YouTube videos to see how the autofocus speed of this lens is with the Fujifilm X-T4. And what most people would say is that even if we change the tracking sensitivity and autofocus speed on the Fujifilm X-T4, it wouldn't really affect the speed on the Viltrox 23mm f1.4. But from my personal experience of using this lens for the last week, it's actually totally the opposite. If I change the settings on the camera, it actually changes also on the lens. We're gonna test everything out later on, so keep watching. And another thing that I noticed is if I change the settings on the camera for tracking sensitivity and autofocus speed, it would only apply these settings after I press the record button on the camera. So for example, if I'm going to change the settings for sensitivity and autofocus speed without actually pressing the record button, I could not see the change of the speed that I made on the camera. But if I press the record button, if I start recording a video, I can see that it actually applies those settings. So that also one thing to know. I don't know if it's a Fuji thing or it's a problem with the Viltrox 23mm f1.4. I don't know exactly because this is my first ever lens for the Fujifilm system, but I just wanted to mention that. Now, with all that being said, let's start with the test. I'm going to leave all the settings down below here somewhere with sensitivity, autofocus speed, if I'm using face, eye detection autofocus or not, and so on and so forth. So let's start. I'm just gonna go left and right. Okay. Now, if I'm going to the corners, I can see that it loses me a little bit. Okay, let's go back. Let's go more back. Okay, so it's getting confused a little bit now. Still fine. Let's make it a little bit harder for the camera. I'm going to put the light backwards, and now I'm dark and I can still see it's tracking my face. No problem. Let's go back a little bit. Still tracking my face, at least the box is still on my face. All right, so now let's go back and forth and see how it tracks my face. I'm gonna move right and left. And I can see it actually tracks my face very, very well. As far as I'm seeing on the screen, everything looks very good. Let's come really close to the camera. Okay, now it got confused a little bit. Let's try this. And back on my face. And on my iPhone. And back on my face. And on my iPhone. And back on my face. And on my iPhone. And back on my face. Now let me change the speed to a faster one. Actually, I'm gonna go to the fastest speed possible with the Fujifilm X-T4. All right, so now we're on the fastest autofocus settings. Let's do the test again. I just don't want to step on my light on the back. Let's move fast. Confuse it a little bit. And it seems to be working really good. Really, really good. Okay. Let's do the iPhone test. 1, 1, 1, 1. So as you can see, it's a lot faster now. That means it actually changes the autofocus speed. It's very accurate and fast now. Let's see how close I can get to the lens. I think this is the closest I can get with the tracking box. Now let's put it to the slowest autofocus settings. Okay, so now it's the slowest autofocus settings. And as you can see, it takes a lot of time for the camera to focus on my face. So it does change the settings with the Viltrox lens. Let's do the iPhone test. And look how slow it is. Only now it focuses. It focused. And now back on my face. Still not, still not. And now it's focused and locked on my face. Again. Now it's focused. Now back on my face. Okay, now I'm gonna try to make it a little bit harder for the camera. I'm going to put this light behind me, so I'll be backlit and see how the autofocus performs then. All right, so now the light is behind me. I just want to try to confuse the autofocus a little bit. Let's do a couple of tests. Now it's on the medium autofocus speed settings. Not too fast, not too slow. Okay. Seems to be very good without any problems. Let's see what happens when I'm going to turn around. To be honest, I'm really impressed with the autofocus of this lens and the Fujifilm XT4. It's very good, at least for me. And you would never do something like this in a video unless you're testing the autofocus. Usually I'm just standing in front of the camera like that and talking, and it's gonna be great for something like this. Now let's turn off the light completely. Yo guys, I don't know exactly what happened, but it seems like the autofocus now is not working at all. Or is it? Let me try again with the iPhone. I see it's tracking my face, but I don't know, a couple of minutes ago, it wasn't even tracking my face. It wasn't working at all. So you see it's not autofocusing on the thing. Okay, so now I'm not using face tracking. The box is just in the middle of the screen. Let's move it actually a bit to the center, like that. And it seems to be focusing fine on me, but when I'm putting my iPhone, let me try to put my iPad or this thing. All right, so now it's focusing on my hand, I can see. And it's stuck. It's stuck. So we have some issues here. Interesting. It's not responding at all now. Nothing that I do, if I move around, not responding at all. Again, I don't know if this is a Fuji thing or a Viltrox thing. Nothing at all. So I put back the light just to see if it helps with the autofocus a bit. And now it seems to be working again. Yes, yes, yes. No face and eye tracking autofocus, just regular autofocus, continuous. Okay, now it's working fine. I guess if you're going to use this autofocus in really low light conditions, it's not reliable at all. Let me bring my iPhone. Okay, with light, it performs really well. As you can see, everything is very smooth. If the lighting is good, everything is very smooth. Okay. Yes. All right, so conclusions. I think that the autofocus of the Fuji XT4 and the Viltrox 23mm f1.4 is pretty reliable if your subject is very well lit, like I am right now. I have a big light in here, so if I'm moving in frame, just talking to the camera, I don't think it's gonna lose focus on my face, to be honest. I tried a couple of times of sitting here for like 20-25 minutes, talking to the camera, just testing the autofocus, and it was extremely reliable. But in low light situations, as you saw, it can be pretty unreliable. So I would say if you're shooting your videos in low light conditions and you rely on autofocus a lot, then you might reconsider buying or the Fuji XT4 or the Viltrox 22mm f1.4, because I still don't know if the issue is with the camera or with the lens. If you know, let me know down below. But in my personal opinion, it's pretty reliable. It's working pretty good when I need it to work. For this kind of scenario, it's going to work extremely well, in my personal opinion. So I guess this is it for today. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. And I hope this video was very informative to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.